Welcome back to the Environment Matters. Thank you for staying tuned with us. On the first half of our program, we continued sharing our achievements in 2022. And joining us, we're very privileged to have, for the very first time on the program, the Executive Director of the EPA, Mr. Kemraj Parsram, and he will continue the trend. We'll hear from the ED's perspective what were some of the key achievements of the EPA last year, 2022. So, Mr. Parsram, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much, Aretha, and good morning, good day to the viewers out there and all of Guyana.
Yes, so I know there's so much to cover. 2022 was a very busy year for the EPA, one of the largest budgets for the agency. And so let's get, in a nutshell, what do you think were some of the principal achievements of the agency during the past year?
Right, thank you. The EPA, as you know, I took over the reins in July of 2021. And the first part, the latter part of 2021 was all about in terms of planning and setting the vision for the EPA. And in 2022, we set out to do a few key things. And of course, it's all work in progress. And what we started was primarily the main issue, the main target was streamlining our environmental authorization process. And that was particularly focusing on our decision making, screening applications for environmental authorizations, and determining clearly when will there be a requirement for an environmental impact assessment. And that had to do with our screening process, and our screening process being based on science and being based on data and an assessment by our officers. And of course, building the capacity of our officers to actually conduct the proper screening and making the appropriate recommendation. So that is one of the key things I'm very proud to say that we have managed to streamline, having our clear screening process and setting out a clear path and decision-making process in determining when and where we require an environmental impact assessment. And of course, that is in keeping with the Environmental Protection Act. And that is one of the most prominent and important issues, is ensuring that the EPA is in compliance with its own act. And that is
Yes, and I'm glad you brought up the point of sound decision making based on science. We had in the previous program Ms. Rashana Thomas, our GIS specialist, talking about some of the new technologies that we would have acquired to conduct remote sensing, and I know that's something that you're very proud of.
Right, and so yes, that is a major strategy, and in fact, in previous engagements with the media, I set out that one of the key things the EPA needs to basically take a modern approach and to leverage technology. And we always say we want manpower, more and more manpower, but technology has developed and has gone a far way. And it's important that we leverage that technology to ensure that we are, in terms of undertaking our compliance and enforcement responsibility. And as you rightly said, we set out to set up remote real-time monitoring room. And what that basically entailed was, first, and oil and gas was the major issue, was ensuring that we get the data, the real-time, the data in terms of produced water, the data in terms of flaring, the data in terms of oil production, water discharges, and all those things, and having it in real time in our offices, manned by an officer and our oil and gas team as well, so that we can see real time what's happening. A major part of that was our partnership with the Maxar Technologies, and this was facilitated by the Ministry of Natural Resources and the U.S. Embassy, and we managed to engage in a contract with Maxar Technologies to actually have real-time task satellite. So an event happening offshore or anywhere in Guyana for that matter, we can task the satellite to go to that location and see real time what's happening. And we have been using that and testing it out in the past year. And so that is a great achievement. We managed to actually see, for example, when there are minor spills, we were able to start the satellite and see the extent of the spill and determine the volume and stuff like that. So that is a tremendous and very, very important achievement for us. And of course, there are other things like your air quality sensors. We have sensors across the countries in regions 2, 6, 10, and region 4. We intend to, of course, expand that in the coming year. Importantly, as well as our water quality, and we've managed to truly, you mentioned government has given us significant capital budget, and we've invested in real-time remote monitoring for water quality. So these sensors or buoys, we call water quality buoys, that have been placed in our coastal waters, in our rivers, and to have real-time data coming in terms of the water quality. And in fact, that is being shipped and delivered to us. We had a slight delay last year, but as of this month, sometime we should have that delivered to us, and we will engage in terms of deploying them.
So that's definitely something to look forward to, audience. In the coming year, EPA's increased capability to monitor different environmental parameters. We talked about that, air quality, what's in the air, water quality, how clean is the water that we use. And in your remarks, you talked a lot about collaboration with different agencies. And so that brings me to our complaints management. And audience, if you recall, we were sitting with the head of the complaints unit, and he would have talked about the collaboration with the Guyana police force and how important it is. Remember, the environment is everybody's business. So, Mr. Parsram, I just want you to touch a bit on achievements when it comes to addressing environmental complaints. Do you think that the program has been successful, and what are some of the things that we can look forward to in the new year?
Yeah, and definitely, and that is one of our major achievements in terms of establishing a dedicated department that is focused on addressing complaints, and importantly, our emergency response capability. So that is one of the things that all of the staff of the EPA can be proud of. And as you mentioned, you spoke to the head during last year. Over the years, over that year, 2022, I keep mixing up the years.
Yeah.
But we were able to increase the number of staff there. We were able to actually set a dedicated emergency response vehicle, so we can respond at any time, and it's always on standby. So there's an emergency reported, the staff can quickly jump in that vehicle, and that vehicle has the suite of equipment required and necessary for actually investigating and responding to an emergency. In terms of the complaints and our partnership, that is one of our key objectives for 2022, was to engage our partners through collaboration. And I mentioned, the EPA's approach to regulation is not one just strictly bent or focused on the big stick, but it's important that we take an approach of partnership, collaboration, of facilitation. And we can't do everything by ourselves. They're co-regulators. And so our partnership with those regulated police force, the NDCs, they have their own responsibilities as well at the very local level. So it's a triage, or it's a level of cooperation, collaboration at all levels of network. So from low to national to regional and even international.
Correct.
And so that is one of our major achievements, is engaging the police force, and they've been very, very responsive and cooperative. And one of the biggest issues in our complaints aspect is noise. And you get tons and tons of complaints about bars and loud music and so on. So we have to target it from an enforcement perspective with the Guyana Police Force. And that is something that is improving. We started it in 2022 and we'll continue in 2023. Even with the NDCs, in terms of responding to simple matters of odor from chicken rearing or from swine rearing and all these different aspects, is engaging the NDC as first responders to play their part in investigating or reporting to us. And when it's necessary for the EPA to take enforcement action, we will then take that. So all in all, that partnership is one that is increasing, and we will continue to work in that regard for 2023. Right. Importantly, though, I also want, and we're talking about technology, is the capabilities of our staff in terms of utilizing technology, not just monitoring in house, but going in the fields with modern technology, so we can actually take notes and data in the field through tablets and through what we call Kobo Collect, that you can actually take that in the field and immediately that data is uploaded to EPA website. So I can sit here and I can see when an investigation is being carried out somewhere in Linden, and I can see the data being put in terms of water quality, in terms of noise, and all these different things. So those are some of the key major achievements that I'm very, very proud of.
All right. And so when we're already in 2023. So later on in the year, what are some of the things that the public can look out for from the EPA?
Okay. And before I get to that, Aretha, I also want to highlight the important thing is we talk about all these technology and partnership and so on, but the EPA as an organization, also one of our proud achievements was building our capacity of our staff.
Indeed.
Of course, not just capacity in terms of training, but in terms of remuneration, in terms of the organizational structure. If we don't have a happy staff, how can we execute our mandate? And so that is one of the key things that we set out to do. We're not perfect, we're not there as yet, but the intention, we started it in 2022 to restructure, to put the right people in the right places, the right expertise, and as well as remunerating our staff adequately. And with, of course, with government's approaching of increasing salaries and at the end of the year, that was welcomed as well.
Yes, and as a staff of the EPA, I can say that I'm satisfied with the work environment, with the efforts of management to ensure that, not only on the remuneration side of things, but to ensure that there are activities for the staff
Correct.
that would cater to our mental health. We have a social committee that looks at engaging staff on another level. We have our games committee.
Correct.
I know I enjoy Scrabble on Wednesdays. It takes the load off. So there are a number of initiatives here at the EPA, and we thank management for implementing. And of course, we, the staff, look forward to much more in 2023.
We work in a very stressed environment. And as you know, we are stressed from all ends, from the policymakers to the public, to our clients, and one thing is setting us being client oriented.
Yeah.
So of course, if our staff is we're not prepared and relaxed, we work hard, we play hard as well. So we have to ensure that there are adequate facilities to maintain their mental fitness.
Yes, indeed. All right.
But going to your question of in terms of 2023, as I mentioned, the work in progress. What we started in 2022 will continue into 2023. But the important thing, and we're currently now working on a strategic plan. And that strategic plan aims to set out clearly, document clearly where we want to go in the next 3 to 5 years. And then, of course, break that down to annual work plans. And one of the most important things in that strategic plan is setting the EPA to be what we call next generation compliance and enforcement. It's a nice buzzword, but I didn't coin that. There are other EPAs around the globe. In a few years, the US EPA had taken that approach of next generation compliance. And we are learning from those EPAs elsewhere and how we can, they had similar situation and issues, and how we can build our capability. So what is next generation compliance?
I was going to ask.
Next generation compliance and enforcement has several aspects. One is setting the right appropriate rules. Rules meaning in our permit conditions. We have the framework, we have legislation, we have the act, we have the regulations. But the important thing, as I mentioned, we streamline our screening and decision making process. But what does that transfer to or translate to? It is our permits. So writing clear permit conditions that the regulated community can comply with and understand. If they don't understand it, they can comply.
Implement, exactly.
Right? So we have to make sure that we write appropriate, clear, specific, practical rules that they can comply. So that's the one key thing. And then I mentioned technology. It's leveraging technology. We have AI, artificial intelligence. We have data analytics. And the oil and gas sector, one of the achievements last year was to start the process of what you call data, and then I can't remember the acronym, but
You can look at that
basically
out.
collecting data from the regulated community in case the oil operators offshore. In the past, they used to submit huge reports with tons and tons of data, but it's actually making that in an electronic format so that it could be analyzed quickly, utilizing AI, for example. So I don't have to have, I mentioned, different number of staff, but with AI and with that technology, we can automate the analysis of data and spikes and breaches and quickly alert us on cases where there may be breaches. So it is leveraging that technology, leveraging data analytics, and building our capacity for that. So that is one of the key things. And I mentioned having data collection in the field, real-time feeding back. So it's all in all linked to that aspect. So it's important, again, I can't stress more than what the use of technology and leveraging technology and the importance of that.